Hi guys, welcome to my channel and to my Back to Beauty No Buy year. This year I'm concentrating on using my makeup and not buying it. Today I'm using my makeup to bring to you my top 20 eyeshadow palettes. If you saw my video on Monday, I am ranking all of my palettes, all 45 of them, just like Kelly Gooch did on her channel. 100% creative credit to Kelly. She's the one I saw do this video, and I will have her and her channel and her video all linked below. So on Monday we talked about my bottom 25 palettes, and today we're going to talk about my top 20 palettes. Now before we get started, just for fun, I'd love to have you guys leave me a comment below if you've been on my channel for any amount of time or just want to have fun. Go ahead and give me a guess on what my number one palette is. I'll wait right here. Okay, let's get into it. So coming in at number 20, the bottom of my top palettes, that is the Violet Voss Holy Grail palette. I did receive this palette in Boxy Luxe in December of 2018, and I do like this palette and I do love the Violet Voss formula. The only reason that this one falls in number 20 is that it's a very specific color story. Again, we're talking about warm neutrals, pinks, reds, warm browns, those kind of things. And why I absolutely love this formula, the very specific color story, as I've mentioned with other palettes that were in the bottom 25, just doesn't keep me reaching for this palette. Coming in at number 19 was actually a little bit of a shocker to me, and that is my ABH Modern Renaissance palette. I do love this palette, and I had to really think on why I wanted to rank it where I did. And I think the reason is because this palette stumps me. For all the colorful eye looks that I create and things like that, when I look at this palette, I cannot figure any eye looks other than pretty neutral, basic eye looks. I am, like every other person in the world, was very attracted to the orange and the pink and the reds here, but I never use them. And if I do, I very seldom like the look that I come out with. So that is why this puppy comes in at number 19, even though it breaks my heart, because she is pretty. Coming in at number 18 is a palette that you would have seen 3 looks, 1 palette from myself and my girl Angela. I will have those videos linked below, and it is my BH Royal Affair palette. This is a stunning palette in an even more beautiful color story. The problem with this palette though is that the mattes are super hit and miss. Some of them work just beautifully and some of them are really patchy and hard to blend regardless of what brush you use, what base you use, etc. So that has this palette coming in at number 18. Another shocker was my pick for number 17. Overall, this top 20 was really hard to rank because these are the top palettes in my collection. I love them all, and so it was kind of a surprise to me that number 17 for me is my Too Faced Gingerbread Spice palette. I like this palette a whole lot. I have no regrets about picking this up during last holiday season, but the reason I have this falling in the bottom half of my top palettes, are you confused yet, is that the shimmers are a wee bit chunky in this palette, specifically these 3 right here. Definitely want to use a glitter glue and possibly even foil it if you can. But otherwise, she's beautiful. I will say there's one throwaway shade, which is this shade right here, Frostbite Me. I really can't get it to work for me at all, and so that's always a bummer if there's a throwaway shade, but she smells yummy and I still love her. And then coming in at number 16 is my ABH Soft Glam palette, and this one may make you chuckle or throw things at your screen, but the reason I'm not a huge fan of this one is because of all the warm neutrals that you get in this palette. Obviously, I knew that this was full of warm neutrals when I bought it, but I really did buy this specifically for the top row and these two right here. So all these down here, I rarely use. I do love this mulberry shade. I love all the shimmers. I love orange soda, and I'm always down for a dusty pink, but the rest of the shades are kind of wasteful and repetitive to the rest of my collection. Okay, going into the next 5 palettes, this is probably the first time I've ever regretted having so many palettes. No, not really. Coming in at number 15 is my Urban Decay Distortion palette. I love this palette, and if you've been around for a little while, you probably know that. These Transformer shades are absolutely transformational. Anything that you layer them over is absolutely stunning. However, I don't really reach for the rest of this palette. When I pull this palette out, I'm specifically pulling it to use these Transformer shades, and so that's why this one falls at number 15. Next is kind of a weird one, but if you have tuned into my Shop My Stash series at all, you'll know what I'm talking about. Coming in at number 14 is my BH Weekend Festival palette. Now, again, I could say this with every single one, and I'm probably being redundant when I say I love this palette. But the reason this one falls at number 14 is because I have no color recall in my mind palace of makeup in my brain. I don't think, okay, I want to do a really bold purple and pink eye look today, so I'm gonna grab for my BH Weekend Festival palette. And that's why I'm shopping my stash through this year and my no-buy year, is because I'm trying to build that color recall, so when I get ready to create an eye look, I know exactly which palette or product to reach for to create the look that I'm envisioning. So the only reason she comes in at number 14 is because I can't remember all the shades that are in here, which means I probably should do a video with this palette soon. Coming in at number 13 is my LORAC Mega Pro 2, my baby. I really do love this palette. However, I think I'm a little burned out from trying to pan it last year. I did hit pan on 5 shades in this palette, and I do still love this palette. I just don't find myself reaching for it thus far this year because I did use it for the entire year of 2018. She's beautiful, I love her, but I'm a little sick of her at the moment. Next at number 12, we're almost to the top 10, is my Urban Decay Born to Run palette. And I do love this palette, as I love all of them. I know I need to just stop saying that. But the reason I put this one where I did is because while it's a beautiful, colorful palette, there's a lot of the same tones in this palette. There's a lot of like mid to dark shades. Obviously you have some lighter shades up here, but the rest of the palette is pretty medium to dark, and so therefore it makes this palette a little bit less versatile as a standalone palette, which I'm trying to break that mindset of using just one palette. I need to learn to create a look in my mind and then pull the appropriate palettes to create it. But that is why this girl right here fell where she did.
This girl, I don't know what I'm talking about anymore.
And coming in at number 11, while a beautiful gift from a beautiful friend, My Huda Beauty Emerald Obsessions comes in at number 11. If you don't know, I love blue and green eyeshadow, so this was a no-brainer, absolutely top of my wish list for holiday and birthday most recently. And I do love this palette. I used a lot in my 3 Lucky Looks for St. Patrick's Day, but I have the same gripe with this one as I do with the Mauve Obsessions, and that is that these 2 shimmers in particular are very, very chunky, flaky, lots of fallout, definitely needing to use a glitter glue and or foil this, and that's just kind of a pet peeve of mine. There's so many beautiful shadows out there that foil without fallout and glitter and the whole thing. So I think that this could be better quality, but I'm still super happy to have it in my collection. It is number 11 after all. And then also, I'm just not a big fan of this middle shade. It's another one of those shades like what I talked about with the Prism palette in my bottom 25 video. And that is that it has like a black base. So unless you really, really build it up and get super dark with it, it pretty much shows up as black on the eye, which is not my jam. All right, only 10 left. We can do it. Let's power through. Coming in at number 10 is, before we get to it, this is the cutthroat part of this video, of this exercise. This is where I had to get really picky because I love these top 10 palettes. So here we go. Coming in at number 10 is my Twofaced Clover palette. The packaging is ridiculous and I still love it. But the reason I put this one where I did is that there are a couple of dud shades in here. Obviously, I don't give 2 hoots about the black, but this yellow is really kind of weird, as well as this puppy eye shade. I can rub it and I mean, you can kind of see it. I don't know. There's some dud shades in here. That's why this one came in at number 10. I have some absolute favorite shades in here, like this one called TF Mascot. So I do reach for this palette frequently. It's one of my spring picks for my capsule makeup collection for spring, but she's at number 10. Coming in at number 9 is another palette that I put into my spring capsule makeup collection, and that is the Juvia's Place Deuce palette. And again, beautiful palette, beautiful color story. My issues with this palette are that I do sometimes feel limited by this color story within my brain. Obviously, I came up with a ton of looks with this palette. I've done a 3 looks, 1 palette with it. This shade, other than kind of setting my primer, is pretty much useless to me. So again, there's a throwaway shade, but mostly it's just a very specific color story, and therefore I feel kind of limited in my creative brain with this palette. This is one of those, this is what I'm talking about. We're getting picky here. Coming in at number 8 is my Too Faced Chocolate Gold palette. This is really, really new to me. But again, if we're getting picky here, the reason I put this in at number 8 is this big ass pan of the shade Chocolate Gold. This is a metallic yellow. I do not like yellow gold on my eyes.
So for me, this is a complete waste of space.
So for me, this shade right here is a complete waste of space. I also am kind of sick of Too Faced putting these huge pans of a cream colored shadow. Most of us have one in our collection. If you don't, you can buy one from Wet n Wild for 99 cents. But I just felt like there was some wasted space in here where they really could have amped up the palette a little bit, and that's why she comes in at numero 8. The next palette, I think you may have been wondering where it was going to come in this countdown, and number 7 is my Jacqueline Hill Morphe palette, which is my Pan That palette for 2019. I love her. I'm enjoying the heck out of the project. Not even remotely sick of her yet, and I think my complaint is something that we heard a lot about when she first came on the beauty scene, and that is there's a ton of neutrals in here. I do wish there was some more color. I do wish that there was some diversity within these neutral shades here in this region, but I do really love her, and I wonder if her ranking might go up before the end of the year or down. You never know. And then coming in at number 6 is my Urban Decay Elements palette, and this is really beautiful. I've had a lot of fun playing with this one so far, but my major gripe is the number and the shades of the mattes in here. It's a little confusing to me with the rest of the color story. So the mattes are this red, this bubblegum pink, this, you know, fleshy nude shade, and this yellowy brown up here. I don't know. I always end up pulling mattes from other palettes when I use this palette, which worked great when I partnered it with Jacqueline, but overall I think they could have made some better choices when it came to the mattes in this palette because there's only 4 of them. All right, here we are at the top 5. Are you ready for this? Top 5, baby. Let me know down in the comments if you were surprised, not surprised. I'm curious, for those of you who are veterans to my journey in beauty, what you think about my top 5. So, coming in at number 5, a palette that I love very, very much, my Natasha Denona Mini Star palette. I love this palette. It takes the guesswork out of getting ready quickly, and I love the shimmers in here as much as I love the mattes. However, there is a problem with this, as I talked about with the Emily Edit, the Wands palette, as well as the Subculture palette. You have some sealing here in the pan. If you see this little bump right here, that's what I'm talking about when I say that the shadow is sealing off. It's a harder consistency than the rest of the shadow, and overall it just shouldn't happen. So that's my little gripe with this one, but I make it work and I love it. Okay, coming in at number 4 is my Violet Voss Flamingo palette. I did get this last summer and she is so pretty. Like I said, at this point we're getting nitpicky. I love this palette. I do think this Flip Flops shade up here is kind of weird. It's a duochrome. It's like, I don't know. It's weird. It's like orange red with a cool shift. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I definitely don't think we needed the black or the sand color, which is, you know, like a bone flesh shade, but I love this. I also say that this one, and this one are pretty similar and look pretty similar on the eyelid. Again, this is just me being picky. Coming in at number 3 is my Viseart Petite Pro 2. I love this color story. I love this formula. My only gripe with this one is that I wish that there was one lighter shimmer. This one verges. It looks more light probably in the swatch than it actually is. See, if you see this here, it's pretty dark. I wish there was a lighter shade for a highlight. Inner corner highlight, highlighting the lid, highlighting the brow bone. I just wish that there was some kind of a highlighting shade in here. Again, nitpicking. Number 2, here we go, is my Natasha Denona Lila palette. Lila. Maybe that's why she's at number 2, because I don't even know what her freaking name is. But again, we're just getting picky here because this is what she looks like. My pet peeve is this thing. I hate this plastic thing. I think for $129 we could have the names printed on the dang palette. I know all the reasonings why they don't do it for Natasha Denona. They're meant for makeup artists, they're meant to be moved around, etc. and so on. I don't like the plastic sheet. Nobody likes the plastic sheet. You don't hear anybody complaining that there isn't a plastic sheet, so why are we still doing this? But my number one palette, my tried and true, my old faithful, is my, and this might surprise you, I'm a relatively colorful girl, but my number one palette is the Persona Identity palette. This is legit, as the kids would say, my favorite palette. The shimmers in here are absolutely gorgeous. There are 6 shimmers and 6, oh hi Lucille, 6 shimmers and 6 mattes. They all work like a dream. These are the most blendable mattes I have ever used, and the shimmers apply like liquid metal. I just can't say enough good things about it. Also, a side bonus, Sona Gasparian, who is the owner of the Persona brand, is absolutely fabulous, super nice. She's commented on all of my videos and posts about this palette, and she's just really involved with her viewership, her fans, and her consumers. So numero uno, how many of you guessed it? How many of you were totally shocked? And how many of you don't care? That being said, I am so done filming right now. I'm kind of like brain dead, but I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope all of your makeup days are absolutely beautiful makeup days, and I will see you in my next video soon. Oh, before I forget though, if you want to see me rank any other category in my collection, let me know down below. I'd be happy to film it. Bye!